Hey everybody, Tim Anderson here, aka Renfell, and welcome to the latest episode in my Point and Clicks Classic series. And today we're diving into another great game, which came out in 1993. It is another game from Sierra. It is a full voice cast featuring some big Hollywood actors, and it's a darker, more mysterious sort of game than Sierra had produced up until this point. We're going to be diving into the first game in the Gabriel Knight series today, but before we do, here's a word from our sponsors, which are all of the subscribers here on this channel. Now, if this is your first time tuning in and you like this video, do me a solid and smash that like button. It does help with the algorithm. It helps out with everything I do here. If you have comments, drop them down below. And if you want to help out, you can subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon so that you get updates for all the future content that we do. Join the Discord. Links are down below. And if you want to support the channel financially, you can head over to the Patreon page for The Weave and the Void, which is what I'm creating with my brother and my wife. It is a point and click game in and of itself, along with a 5th edition tabletop setting and a book series in the vein of Dragonlance. So check that out over at Wandering Hermits Patreon. It's patreon.com/Wandering Hermits. You'll find more information about who we are, the Wandering Hermits, and more information about the Weave and the Void. So without further ado, let's dive in to Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Father. So going back to the fact that this was a more darker entry into anything that Sierra had produced up until this point. If you've ever played like the King's Quest game, the Space Quest games, Quest for Glory games, those were all very much tongue-in-cheek, filled with lots of jokes, and definitely kind of more, I would say more family-friendly, maybe like a PG rating. G to PG. That's just my personal take on things. Gabriel Knight took things and kind of kicked it up a notch and made a game that, in my mind, was more like PG-13. Definitely had a lot more going on in terms of story and darkness. Also, just the overall theme is a lot more adult. This game was put together by Jane Jensen, who, for those of you who know who she is, she needs no introduction. But if you've never played this before, she started off at Sierra as a sort of writer gate, basically, and she worked alongside other individuals on the projects, and eventually got to the point where she co-created King's Quest 4, excuse me, 6, sorry, Air Today, Gone Tomorrow, which, by the way, we're going to be reviewing on this show, on this channel, in this series, because it's an amazing game. It's one of my favorite King's Quest games. She co-developed that with Roberta Williams, and then went from there onto this project where she was the lead on everything. And it just kind of shows the evolution of her journey throughout Sierra, kind of culminating in going solo on Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Father. Now, this game, in my mind, has some of the best writing in any of those late 80s into the early 90s Sierra games. And this is mostly because Jane Jensen is a writer. I mean, she ended up going on and writing novels in this world and beyond, and it shows because this game is jam packed with way more dialogue and way more just descriptions of all sorts of things than any of the other previous Sierra games had had. At least that's my impression. I mean, maybe lines of dialogue, I don't know those things, but I know just from playing through it, especially now coming back to it years later, in this recent playthrough, it's just sort of almost at an overwhelming level of just stuff being thrown at you. And if you're a lore junkie like I am and you like to read, then that's great because you're going to get lots and lots and lots of entertainment out of this. Now, this was another one of the early games that featured a full voice cast. So everything in this game is fully voiced. So when I did the dig previously for LucasArts, that was another game around this same time period that was also fully voiced with a Hollywood voice cast. In this case, this came out, I believe, a little bit before that, a few years before the dig. I don't remember exactly when the dig came out, but this is 1993, and so this was produced, 91, 92, and we have Tim Curry as our main protagonist, and also featured on the cast is Mark Hamill, who also needs no introduction. None of those guys do, and a bunch of other people who have done voices in many other games. You'll recognize them as you play the game. But everything here is fully voiced. Every line of dialogue, every description text, and while there are some quirky, fun kind of one-liners here and there. For the most part, the overall tone of this game is much more serious. It's set in New Orleans, and everybody's got a very sort of, I don't want to call it authentic, but they definitely are doing their best to put on a good Cajun accent. And I wouldn't call it campy, but at times it can feel a little campy. But for the most part, it comes off, as sincere rather than being over the top. So as long as you can roll with the fact that it's not completely authentic, it is what it is. It's a lot of fun, and it gets you really into the theme. Something that's a lot different in this game than other Sierra games, for example, is that the sort of the options on the point and click menu are a little bit more expansive. So you don't just have like your general talk to something, pick up something, and move. You've also got, well, there's pick up and then there's interact, which in many other Sierra games, that single click, that single pointer does both, but here it very much does do different things. And then you've got, I'm going to scroll up here to make sure I don't misspeak on this. Yeah, you've got walk, look, ask, talk, pick up, open and close, operate, and move. All of which kind of operate slightly different than previous games. So talk is used for short general interaction. Ask is asking things of main characters and different topics. You've got also, yeah, the recorder in your inventory, also a sketchbook that you can use. So there's a lot of different stuff going on here, a lot of different options, which can make this feel at some point a little overwhelming. But at the end of the day, once you do learn this kind of newer style of control for the Sierra games, it does add another level of in-depthness to this game in my mind. Now, I don't want to spoil anything, but the basic nature of this is basically you are um, a a novelist, struggling or otherwise, depends on your point of view, but definitely kind of a starving artist who also owns a bookstore. Um, and you get fed hints and tips by one of the local police officers who expects that you're going to be putting him into the next book as a major character. And so, sort of, your whole basically involvement in what's going on in the city is that there are a series of murders that have been happening, and you basically kind of use your connections with the local police, with one of the investigators, to kind of get behind the scenes info. But at the same time, there's also something going on with your family history, which ties you into what's going on with the voodoo and the magic and everything else. And there's ties all the way back to Africa. There's ties all the way back to Germany. There's different stuff. If you've ever watched the series Grimm, I kind of felt like there was coming back and playing this now after I'd watched the series Grimm. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like there's tie-ins to other bits of lore that I didn't know the first time I played this game through, and then having come back now 20 some years later, um, some different things have happened and gone on. So very interesting, and I think I got more enjoyment out of it this time around, my second playthrough many years later, than I did the first time, because I understood a lot more of what was going on, because I've had a lot more time to be introduced to these other bits and pieces of lore. So I'm not going to spoil the rest of the story for you, but that's basically the kind of gist of what's going on here. And so your job as a writer and an investigator is to go through and sort of solve the case, so to speak, alongside your fellow police investigator. Not fellow, but just this other police guy. So it's a great game. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of stuff going on here. So if you like lots of different sub stories and plots and storyline, this is going to be a game that you will enjoy. At the end of the day, if I had to give it a rating on a scale of like 1 to 10, I'd put this up there at like a 8.5. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Graphics, of course, haven't held up over the years, but if you can get past that, it is a great game to play through. You can get on GOG. I put all the links down below if you want to check it out for yourself. Let me know what you think. If you have played this game before and you have comments, don't forget to drop those down in the description text below. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon. All those good things. Join our Discord. Links are down there. I'm out of breath. And of course, if you want to support the channel financially, you can always head over to the Patreon page where myself, my brother, and I, that's repeating itself, we're creating The World of the Weave and the Void, which is a point and click game, a book series, and a 5th edition tabletop setting over at our Patreon page, patreon.com/wandering hermits. You can find more information. Hopefully you enjoy, everybody. Stick around for the next game in the series, which I won't spoil yet, but it will be a LucasArts game next up because we've done one LucasArts, two Sierras. Now we got to go back and do another LucasArts game, so stay tuned for that. Stay safe, everybody. Until next time.